Welcome, Becky, to our little show here. And I was thinking about how would I introduce you? And I mean, obviously, I have to introduce you the way that we met. So for those, Danny, you've been to Edinburgh before. You know that we've got you can ski in Edinburgh all year long, right? So there's a dry ski slope, plastic ski slope that I think everybody in Edinburgh learns skiing on that slope. It's called Hill End. And usually what it entails is if you've got kids there, so unless you go there with friends, as a parent, most of the time you stand around and you wait, you might get a drink, you might look after some of the kids if you've got other kids, or you just spend your time on the phone, right? You just and then see your child for a bit. But I had a week in the summer of this year where I was longing forward to going back to the skiing because Becky and her husband, we it was first Tom that I met on the Monday, and we just started chatting, and I had the best time. And then he was like, "Oh, do you know what? My wife is here tomorrow." And then we just hit it off straight away. So it was between the two of them. I had the best time. I think the kids enjoyed their skiing, but I had a great time. So hanging out with you two people from the medical profession was phenomenal. It was a really, really good time. But since then, I've been, we kind of stayed in touch. And yeah, I've been really, really impressed with Becky because yeah, you have a very demanding lifestyle. And I'll let you introduce yourself in terms of what you do. But you just seem so fit and healthy and handling it all well. And from what I can gather, it's that you're doing this juggling of really focusing on wellness, and yet you're steeped in the kind of medical side in the NHS. And you seem to navigate that so well that I thought it would be worthwhile for all of us to hear from you, and learn from you and ask you questions. So with that, Becky, if you don't mind giving us a bit of an overview of your journey and what you do.
Yeah, perfect. So I really enjoyed that week in Hill End as well. Usually it can be a little bit dry, or you're stuck speaking to people that you don't particularly, the lessons are 4 hours. It's fairly lengthy, but it was a nice week. So those feelings are reciprocated. Um, yeah, so my background, I'm essentially both an NHS and a private GP, and a general practitioner. And I qualified back in from GP back in 2018, qualified medicine in 2012. And after qualifying as a GP, kind of deep end, busy general practice, it just occurred to me, or slowly came to the recognition that actually we're doing all this reactive medicine. We see sick people, and try and fix them. We see people with kidney stones and try and operate on them and fix them. But what are we doing actually to look after people earlier on? So recognizing things early, right? What's the point of doing all this reactive medicine when actually prevention is best? Trying to look after people well earlier on so that they don't necessarily have a really, well, we'd like a long lifespan, yes, but a really good health span, so we stay healthy for a longer period of time, and try and reduce that frailty later on. And so following that, I ended up doing a lifestyle medicine accreditation through the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. And now I'd spend some of my time in a private clinic doing some lifestyle medicine consultations. So that's, looking at people's parameters, checking if they've got any kind of indicators of metabolic syndrome. So, what's their blood pressure doing? What's their insulin resistance like? Doing a general kind of 360 of their health, and not just kind of the 10 minutes that we get in general practice to be like, this is what's wrong with you. Here's your medicine, out you go. So there's definitely a place for that, and absolutely, they can go hand in hand. There's so much wellness out there at the moment, and I guess lifestyle medicine's something that it's to complement traditional medicine as well, but something that thankfully is getting recognised more in NHS. They're really now starting to realise prevention is better than reactive medicine, and actually the NHS is a publicly funded body. It's really a national treasure that the UK has, but funding people to stay well longer and identifying things earlier and giving the support to change things earlier is actually financially more beneficial than throwing all these medications at people once it's perhaps too late or very difficult to reverse. So there's a few of us in Edinburgh that are really keen to try and change medicine a bit, or try and implement lifestyle medicine alongside traditional medicine. But it's it's going to take a while to kind of get there, get things recognized more.
Yeah.
I am so I am my as well as working, then I'm busy. I've got my two young kids. My husband's an orthopedic surgeon, so he's fairly busy most of the time. And then big emphasis on exercise, whether that's, all together as a family. We did the park run with our 8-year-old on Sunday this week, or out cycling with the kids, or at the gym, whatever you can fit into your daily routine. There's, the WHO, the World Health Organization, I think they recommend that you do 150 minutes of exercise a week, and you're lucky if like a third of people meet that. So, I try and meet all those targets and make sure I'm doing what I'm trying to sell to people as well.
Oh, awesome. Great backstory. How difficult is it for that general system to understand that prevention would be better than just trying to find last minute solutions to somebody coming to your doorstep already totally sick? How difficult is that, and what is the big battle you're fighting? From the US, I guess it's quite easy to see that the pharmaceutical companies are pulling the strings. Is that the same in the UK?
I think the UK, it's probably financial constraints. So GPs, you've got 10 or 15 minutes to see a patient. And usually, and those patients have phoned up however many times, 100 times for that appointment. And they're limited really to one or two things that they can talk about. So you might see someone and they're in because they're recovering from flu, right? And they just want checked over, that's fine. And you do their blood pressure and you realize it's really high, but your kind of 10 minutes is already up. And in an ideal world, you want to be like, right, well, your blood pressure's high. What are we going to do about that? And have a holistic chat. And the time's not there. And you ask them to call back to make an appointment, but then they've got the whole problem again if they didn't manage to get through and they give up, you got to hit it while it's hot. And it's really difficult to do that in short consultations.
Mm.
So that's probably one of the biggest factors.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Now, it's always, I find, with anybody, it's the things that are so boring to us that are the most interesting to the outsiders, right? So, and today, funnily enough, I took two of the boys to the GP. So we've got tonsillitis in the house now as well, which
Oh,
is
no.
always good before Christmas.
Mhm.
Early present there. Um, but what is it actually like being a GP? Because all I can see is, as you rightly said, we need to call up sometimes like 80 times to get through, and then you've got 10 minutes. But if you have an appointment that's say 2 hours into the day, everybody's running late.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how realistic is it to get through a day and feel not stressed and not completely run off your toes?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think it depends how you manage your time. I try not to run late because I don't cope well with. I recognize that I don't cope well with the anxiety of running late. So I'm quite strict with people if they come in with multiple things. I make sure they've got a review appointment to go over the kind of the list. Um, so yeah, it's busy. It's an average day. If you're in a full day, you're probably going to see like 32 to 38 patients, and maybe pop out to a couple of houses to see patients in their home. You don't know what's coming in the door, so it might be women's health 1 minute, and then a prostate cancer the next, and then you might go and do a house visit of someone that's dying. So it's complex, and you're kind of feeding into what availability is of all the different team members, which is often not much availability. So it's stressful. I guess I protect my time, and I'm fortunate that I can work half days. So I know that I can be in I started at 7:30 this morning. That's fine by me. I'm an early person. I'm up at 5 or half 5. So, and I'm done by 1. And for me, I feel like I can give my full self, which as a doctor you want to do. The people that you see at 8 in the morning should be getting the same Dr. Becky as the 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But in reality, for me, that wouldn't work. So I'm fortunate I can do half days, and then feel like, if I've had a bad day, it's okay because I've got the afternoon to go for a run. But not everyone has that, and it's
Mm.
levels are huge. You see huge amount of burnout in general practice, people going off sick because You know, they've got empathetic burnout as well. They're, you know, trying to be there for everyone in their practice, and then they go to home to their family, and they don't, you know, they don't have enough for everyone, and you know, everyone's got their limits. So it's difficult. I've managed to navigate a really nice way of me doing it. I work at the hospital at the weekends as well, because my husband's often off, so I can make up hours that way. But yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you do. That's for sure. Um, how and again, that's the question we briefly touched upon when we were kind of catching up and just before the guys joined us here. Um, but I'm just amazed how you are not completely run down and constantly ill if you're exposed to all those, as you know said, all you know, people coming in, especially at this time of year. You know, flu is rampant. And how are you not constantly ill? Like that, you know, what's your immune system like and what do you do to keep it that strong?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, living a kind of good lifestyle really helps with that. I take vitamin D. Everyone in Scotland should be taking vitamin D at least from October time till March. We have no sun. I think that's the public health stance on it. Although I take it all year round. I mean, I'm not immune to flu. I had it, and I'm recovering from it as well. I had a fairly bad day of it, and I never take time off work. You know, I've turned up to work being more unwell than the patients I'm seeing, but I really never take time off. I think it's the first day I've ever taken off about 3 weeks ago for flu, because I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. So we're not immune to it. We do get unwell, but yeah, vitamin D is really important, and you know, healthy lifestyle the rest of the time. You can't fill from an empty bucket. You have to have something in reserve. So just making sure your diet's good. You know, we're getting all our vitamins like vitamin C, B12, everything off our diet. So as long as you're constantly nourishing yourself and seeing your food as your kind of nutrition and medicine almost. I think Hippocrates, you know, had it right when he said, let food be thy medicine. You know, we get so much from the nutrients that we ingest. So to keep us healthy.
Mm. And how bad is it going to be that we're going through this Christmas period now, where there's chocolates, there's cakes, there's fried food, or whatever else it might be? What sort of toll does that take on that lifestyle?
Delicious, delicious. Listen, you got to live, don't you? There's no point like, you know, we can all live by like rigid rules, and I've done it myself before, where you're like great on your exercise and your sleep. You're getting your 7 to 8 hours. You've got your social connection. Like you guys here logging into this without you even knowing it have fulfilled one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. So there's 6 pillars. Social connections, one of them. It's meeting up in a group like this, or going out with a group of guys, or whatever, something that you enjoy doing is really actually good for your physical health. So you know, but you can't beat yourself up. You have to enjoy life too. But moderation, right? It can be a really difficult time for people, especially with our relationships with food. So you know, feeling really guilty, and then either feeling like, oh, I may as well just keep going because I've eaten half the box of chocolate, so I'll just finish it. It is really hard, but I think being kind to yourself as well.
Hmm, I like that. Well, let's follow this track. As I was saying, the conversation I had last week with the group of the guys was very much around New Year, not necessarily new me, but they were gearing up to say, look, 2026, I want to be healthier, I want to be fitter. But then again, it's this question, right? So how do you do it? Because everybody gets super motivated at this time of year, and then they download the apps and they, you know, especially in this circle, you know, I can see people probably watching David Goggins movies and videos for a good while, and then going for runs, and after 2 or 3 days it falls off again, right?
Mhm.
So if somebody is in this boom bust cycle, what do you say to them? What is the first step that they need to take to break that gaining weight and then having to psych themselves up, getting a bit fitter and then failing again?
Yeah. And it's really hard. And a lot of it's not necessarily, so we're kind of programmed the way we are. You know, your weight isn't just a really simple case of like what you eat, how much you exercise, what's going in and out. We've all got our genetic makeup, our epigenetics. So not necessarily what you're how you're eating, or but what you're eating. So ultra processed kind of food comes into it. And there is kind of theories about your epigenetics. So that's how your genes are expressed. We've all got our DNA, and the epigenetics is how the how that DNA is kind of translated and expressed. So I guess your DNA is like your the words in your sentence, and your epigenetics is your punctuation. So it can really change how a sentence sounds. So epigenetics, how your DNA is translated and how it's expressed, really is controlled by lots of environmental things. And a lot of your adipose tissue, your fat cells, have a memory. So you might really struggle with that kind of weight gain after weight loss, because your fat cells have this memory of what weight you were before. So it's, we put huge amounts of blame on ourselves for like, oh, I lost that weight and I've put it back on, and how difficult it is, when, a lot of it is actually what your programming is too. So again, being kind to yourself, because, you have to be your own best supporter. And like, it's okay for us to put a bit of weight on, and then it is really hard to kind of take it off, but you can do it. It's sustaining it. I guess not setting yourself huge goals and expectations, but chunking things. So doing manageable changes slowly, right? So it's not a race, and it's a long-term change. And I guess your diet and your lifestyle is not something you can do for a month and be like, right, that's me done, and then go back to the old you. It's small sustainable changes that you incorporate into your life, and that's really difficult for some people. We've not. You're really privileged if you've been brought up eating healthy food and knowing that you need to eat your fruit and vegetables, right? Not everyone has that background. They've been brought up, eating crisps for breakfast. So it's about seeing where you are, making it person dependent, and making manageable chunks, looking at the long term. So, you want to live a long, healthy life. You don't want to lose the weight in a month and then gain it back on. It's just going to be harder to take it off again. So, just setting yourself manageable goals, and accepting help when you need it.
Yeah. So for somebody who is struggling, so who, say, it's a parent, they don't get great sleep, snacks are all around because the kids have, bring them in, and they're just in the house. They might be having a beer in the evening, or two, or some wine, because they feel, this is the one thing that's for me. And all these things spiral, kind of one thing leads to another. If
Yeah.
they're thinking about, I want this year to be different, what are the top things to dial in, that you would say this is the linchpin, or this is the snowball? When you get one or two, when you focus on these first, they will then help you with the other ones. What would you recommend there?
I would concentrate on the restorative sleep in that case. So we know alcohol is really bad for your sleep. So, the kind of as I said, there's 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Sleep is one of them. Harmful behaviors is the other. And so if you're having restorative sleep, you're less likely to choose. There's loads of evidence and loads of papers behind this. If you have a good sleep, if you've got restorative sleep, you're less likely to eat unhealthily the next day. You're more likely to pick the good options because you're not knackered. So the sleep in that issue, if that was fixed, everything else might fall into place, or at least give you the brain space. A lot of us, if you're really tired, I've had young kids. If you're really tired, we call it fog eating. So you know, you're halfway through eating something, you realize you're eating, you've not even been hungry, you've been stressed or tired, and you're just eating, you're not, so the sleep's a huge thing there, and it's not that easy, like, oh, just go and get some sleep. People have real issues with their sleep, but there's loads you can do if you sleep diary, if you look at what someone's eating, when they're eating, what their kind of sleep hygiene is. There's loads of apps out there. So Sleepio is one we recommend by the NHS. There's loads of, headspace things for that can put you into kind of nice sleep cycles. But yeah, the sleep's a really important kind of place to start there.
Hmm. So sleep and alcohol, as you said, because alcohol, then, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And once we've kind of dialed these in, what is the And then I see Danny has a question. We can turn through it later in terms of the diet. But what role do supplements play? Because you've talked about vitamin D before, but I'm sure a lot of guys will have a cabinet full of, mushrooms and um, I don't know what else is there, beef liver and then greens and all of that stuff. Like, what do you think about them? Do they have a role, and what is their role?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess um the problem there is a role, obviously, there's loads and loads out there. There's loads of stuff that's just total nonsense, that's marketed well and makes you pay all this cash for things that probably aren't doing anything. Um but yeah, I mean, if you're low on certain vitamins from your diet and you can do blood tests to check those, then you absolutely supplementing for those. B12. I mean, personally, I think the most important thing can do is get your nutrition from your diet. Our bodies are made to ingest what we eat and then take the nutrients that we need from it and excrete the rest. We've spent millions, thousands of years of kind of homing our physiology to what it is now. There's been a huge change over like the last 50 years even of how, I guess, environment for our bodies to kind of struggle with. But before that, the kind of changes in physiology have been pretty slow because we've managed to work things out quite well. So I think, first and foremost, looking at your plate, what's on your plate, is there lots of really good green stuff in there? Are we getting polyphenols? Are we getting, our vitamins from all our vegetables, our meat if we eat it? If you were going to choose a diet that was like the most evidence-based, that's got the most papers written about it, everyone knows about the Mediterranean diet. But it's hard, and people are busy, right? Their time poor. It's really hard to get all those nutrients and eat your rainbow, your 30 different colors on your plate through the week. So it's, I appreciate that it's really difficult in real time to make all those changes or to live by that, but it's kind of doing the best that you can.
Hmm. Speaking of diets, which are the ones that you have seen or maybe have read about that the most bonkers ones that people have fallen for, and actually long-term wise they are just not good for you? Are there any?
Um, it's really hard, right? Because there's so many diets out there, and probably some of them, what works for one person doesn't work for the next. Again, our insulin resistance is different, so everyone's got different, their body will do with what energy levels it's given differently. Yeah, I mean, I've seen, like, what's the most what do they call it? I'm trying not to use like gross language. Like coffee enemas, that kind of thing, to kind of clear things out. I met someone who literally just drank coffee for like a week, to see if, and obviously you're going to lose weight if you do that because you're going to wee out quite a lot. It's a laxative as well. You're going to, the other end. So, yeah, I mean, we see lots of funny things coming through our door as a GP. It's quite a humbling thing to do, actually. People tell you things that they probably haven't told their nearest and dearest, but sometimes it's shocking, but you have to kind of be unfazed.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, and you've touched upon the six tenets of lifestyle medicine now a couple of times, but I don't think we've heard all six. Would you mind giving us the six?
So, and they're all kind of, I guess, when we were saying about what one thing would you kind of choose, and we were saying about the sleep, but actually they all kind of complement each other. So
Mm.
diets, kind of one of them, physical activity, sleep, harmful substances, stress management, and mood, and then social connection as well. Which, in today's busy life, a lot of people are losing. Social connection is a huge one, and it's actually, we're a species that really need other people, but with busy lives and things like that, it's people are losing that social connection.
Yeah. Does in that realm, does this, as you said, like in terms of jumping on a call like that, I'm assuming this isn't necessarily a physical sensation, but it's much more the social element that you're meeting other people. Is that what is important?
Yeah. Yeah, and it feeds into stress management too. So, the more stressed you are, your cortisol levels jump up. Social connection can help with that as well.
Mm.
Having someone to kind of as a sounding board to talk to.
So stress then, being huge, right? The
Yeah.
yeah, please just yeah,
So
if you
there's loads of kind of longitudinal studies of quality of life. So, how people on a scale rate their quality of life, and actually social connection is like a huge predictor of like longevity with regards to your quality of life. Um, so and that probably feeds into other things too. As I said, with reduced stress management, if you're yeah, again, you're really lucky if you've got all your faculties, if you can go for a walk with friends, but if you've got that social connection, a lot of the other things kind of are easier to fall into place as well.
yeah. And is it correct to say that stress as such isn't necessarily bad when it is acute stress? So we are like you would have with sports, right? I mean, we were talking about skiing. So if you're going down, if you don't going down the slopes at speed, there will be stress, but it's manageable stress. But the stress that's bad is that underlying constant waiting for the emails and checking stuff on a Sunday afternoon. Is that what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so chronic stress, chronic kind of elevated cortisol levels causing inflammation. So it's obviously terrible for your mental health if you're checking your emails, constantly throughout the day and worrying about what's going on. But it also has indications with regards to your blood pressure, with your cardiovascular system, with increased risk of things like stroke, heart disease, that kind of thing. So I know that chronic stress absolutely can increase the risk of those.
Yeah. So what should we do then? If you're suffering from that, right? You're sitting down and you are constantly worrying about your emails, or you might have a job,
Yeah,
because we've got a guy here in the group. He's a lawyer, and he was saying it's just part of his practice and it's part of what is expected in his working culture. That if a client emails, that one of the team picks it up within 2 day 2 hours.
yeah.
So that is just, what do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. And I wish I could take my husband's stance on it, who when if I'm worrying about anything, he's just like, oh, just don't worry about it. I'm like, oh right. I didn't realize that was something I could choose to do. Great. But it is really hard, right? And I think a lot of that is something that we've kind of developed. Again, it's the Amazon effect where you can click and get it like the next day or that same day. And that's the expectation now of like, you have to reply to your emails within 2 days. Um, 2 hours, sorry, 2 days, sorry, NHS emails, 2 days. Yeah, it's really hard, and that's probably a systems change. There has to be a change where we're not expecting that. Like I understand when it's like big money, people are paying for whatever service, then they expect that. And he's in a really difficult position because unless there's a system change that he can make, what do you do? I know some people, I have colleagues that get such a volume of emails that their immediate response is, I won't reply to this email quickly and I'm unlikely to read it. If you need me, just call me. Because a lot of the time, someone will email you. We're really quick. It's a really quick thing to do. You might email someone a throwaway email, and actually that person's probably getting hundreds of those. Maybe just trying to I guess, teach the people who are emailing you what is appropriate and not appropriate to email about. But yeah, it is difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just email, right? I mean, that's the other thing. While you were talking, I was thinking, yes, fair enough. There's this lawyer example, but how many mums and dads are sitting at home just with school WhatsApp groups? I mean, which are going rampant, and then you've got Christmas, and then you've got play dates, and then you've got the play, and then you've got birthday celebrations for the teachers and pajama day and all of that stuff, right? So if you're bombarded with that and as such you can't get out because you have to know what are things that we should do to alleviate that stress then.
So, I mean, a lot of people I know, and I think there's papers on it where how efficient you are with your emails is if you have an allocated amount of time, and that's the hour where you're going to sit and do your emails, and it's once a day or twice a day, rather than constantly being like ping, 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 like stress, 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 stress. And the same with your phone. So I actually silence and I noticed yours was silenced earlier. Like, if I'm doing something, I silence it. All my messages are off because I will read them when I have the brain space to do it.
Mhm.
Because really, and I guess I'm in a privileged position that I see life or death. So, someone really shouldn't be messaging me. There's nothing that's that important that someone's dying on the phone, that they'd be calling me or calling an ambulance. So, it's about protecting yourself and respecting your own time as well, because it's important. And if you recognize that those messages constantly from school, and I've had it like constantly from school, I'm on the parent council, so I appreciate probably adding to that stress by texting people all the time. But protecting your time, it's not a selfish thing to do. You have to do it for self-preservation.
Yeah. Oh, great. I think what I'll do at this stage, and I've got a whole list of questions, and I feel no stress because I want to ask you all of these questions. But I'm gonna just open it up to get the guys just raise their hand, and we'll call them in. And I'm gonna call Danny. You don't need to raise your hand because you already put a question in the chat. If you wanna, oh, you said you have got two even. If you wanna just unmute yourself and join us.
Thanks, Becky. Appreciate you spending the time with us. The question that I scribbled in the chat was about whether we can truly get, I think you sort of covered it actually, the nutrients and stuff we need, because I'm quite anti all the supplements, but I'm conscious that there's a massive market out there for it, and I question sometimes whether I need to. And B12's been mentioned a couple of times to me, as to whether I should top up on that. I generally eat a pretty good diet. Can the average punter, I'm out of the house really early in the morning, rarely get a proper breakfast, and then quite often trying to eat on the fly getting home.
Yeah.
Can you get everything you need when you're not sitting down to that wholesome breakfast, lunch and dinner?
Yeah. So I think you can.
I've just muted Danny. Danny, if for your second question, just unmute yourself again. Yep.
So yeah, I think you can, but it's all about prep, right? So if you are into porridge, if you're into porridge, or if you're into yogurt, if whatever you're into, you can find that breakfast on the go. You can find something that's going to have enough of the nutrients, whether it's like, and this isn't with adding loads of shit in. So oats with Greek yogurt with a load of frozen blueberries and some milk and some chia seeds. And so you can add some fiber if you want to. That's going to be enough to get your levels in. You don't need to be supplementing. And actually, if you're in the UK, you can absolutely go to your GP and ask for your B12 to be checked to see what you need to work on. It's not an unreasonable thing. I think, we've been conditioned, especially after COVID, to be like, don't bother your GP, just don't bother them. And so you feel guilty. I've done it myself. I felt guilty when I'm going in because I'm not on death's door. And like, what sort of state have we got, the world into, where people feel they can only go to their GP if they're half dead? Like, that's not the medicine that I went into. And so if you're worried about your kind of levels, they're limited at what, they can't do every single blood test that there is, but you be reasonable within limits to go and ask, like, can I get my full blood count and my B12 checked? And actually, I'd quite like my sugar levels, my HbA1c and my cholesterol, because if you know what they are, it gives you a benchmark to kind of work on. I think preparation is key. And, you can do most Sunday nights, I would make, this is me like shouting out that I'm a great wife. My husband might disagree, but I would make our kind of our breakfast pots for the week. So we've got, I would make that kind of blueberry pot ready to go for the next day, because I'm in early, but I'll sit and eat my pot at kind of 9 or 10 o'clock. So I've got some sustenance there. So as long as if you're being organized, and I appreciate a lot of people are really time poor, but there are some really quick and easy things that you can make that will just make it easier for you. You're less likely to reach out for the rubbish if you've got something like that available to you.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
Danny, did you have another one?
I did, yeah. It was when you mentioned the coffee enema thing, which I know is a bit of a fad, but I'm laughing because I've had this conversation with my brother. My brother and I are quite similar. He's quite a bit older, but he's having quite regular colonic irrigation, which again is obviously not a sort of tea time kind of a topic. And he absolutely sweats.
We have 2 conversations all the time, 2 minutes.
Brilliant. So get right into the sort of Bristol stool chart then if we need to. But but he swears by it. So he has issues with craving sugar and all that sort of stuff, and he's saying that it's been really, really helpful. I I I'm less convinced that rinsing out everything that's in your colon and all of your gut is a good thing. Is there any evidence to support for or against?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about the evidence behind it. What I would know, what I know is about your gut microbiome. So we spend a lifetime developing our a balance of what microbes we have in our gut. So inside your gut, you've got like millions and millions and millions of different bacterias, that are balanced. And in my mind, a colonic irrigation or a coffee enema is probably clearing out a lot of that balance that your body's worked hard to make. There's loads of really interesting stuff about your microbiome, papers about microbiome and how certain people's microbiome is maybe less effective at certain things than others. Our microbiome is absolutely is kind of the way it is from what we eat and what we ingest. And so it's why you'll see it all on social media about everyone being like, oh, fiber is great, but it helps feed your gut bacteria, which are really important. And we know that, your gut is one of the biggest organs that makes loads of serotonin as well. So your happy hormone, you often find that people with poor diets have poor mental health as well. And actually, is there a correlation there between your microbiome, your gut health and your mental health? I don't know if that really answers the question, but essentially, in my mind, I think coffee enemas and things, it probably disrupts that careful balance that your body's quite good at making.
That's perfect. Yeah, just give us something to talk about over Christmas. So,
Yeah, great.
thank you, Becky. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks, Danny. I'm just going to pick up something from Thomas. So I guess to kind of rephrase this, the question was, if you're going to, so primary care, that's obviously we're talking US now, so GP primary care. But when you're moving, and you were saying this in terms of going to your GP and you're not just at death's door, but if you want to move from not just sick, but actually looking at peak performance. So I want to be at my best. What should I ask for? What are the things that would truly help unlock and make me understand, okay, these are the markers, this is the blood work, this is the stuff that would really help me go from I'm in okay maintenance mode, but I actually want to unlock the next level.
Yeah. So I think the kind of blood tests that are completely reasonable to ask for, and a lot of time it would want to be a fasting blood test, so before you've had anything to eat or drink in the day, but your cholesterol, so your full profile of triglycerides, having a look at your good and your bad cholesterol, your HbA1c, so that's a blood test that looks at your sugar levels for the last 3 months. So it's not just what you've kind of eaten the day before, but it looks at kind of what's been going on in your body for the last 3 months. And then your B12 would be completely a reasonable thing to ask for as well. Your full blood count, your kidney function as well. I think that would be a completely reasonable thing to ask for. And then I guess person specific. So we kind of need to, it's really good to have guidelines. It's really good to kind of work off what to do in certain situations, but we have to remember that when humans are complex, we don't just follow, we're not all the same, and that's like wonderful, that's beautiful. But so really being kind of patient specific, doing the kind of general blood test that we just talked about, and then delving a little bit more into like, well, what are your energy levels doing? Should we maybe check your testosterone? Is that kind of dipping as you're getting a bit older? Or, what are your waterworks like? Are you up 10 times through the night? Because we should probably check your prostate level. Again, we're not great at checking that. And certainly in like certain ethnic groups as well, we should be checking that a lot more than we do, because of higher risk of prostate cancer as well. So very much person specific, but kind of baseline, doing your full blood count, kidney function, your sugar levels, your cholesterol. There's loads of fancy blood tests that you can get privately, like your high sensitivity CRP, looking at kind of your inflammatory markers and certain cardiac enzymes and things too. But I think as a baseline, just the ones that we talked about are probably reasonable to give you a kind of start point.
Thanks so much. Would you say like annual blood test is pretty typical, or how often do you suggest to people do it more often than annual?
Yeah. So again, very like patient specific, but if you for example, if I did your HbA1c, your sugar levels, and they were a bit higher than we wanted, then I think it'd be reasonable to say, well, what should, well, in an ideal world, you say, right, well, why are they high? You know, not just what are you eating, but how are you eating it? You know, there's a certain sequence that we can eat food that we know means your body processes it better and you're less likely to get sugar spikes. So eating your kind of green things first before you eat your meat and then your carb really keeps help stop those sugar spikes. So giving someone some direction for maybe 3 months and then rechecking that parameter and saying, right, have we been able to make a change with lifestyle? You know, and if you stick it a plan, again, small chunks, and saying, right, well, I'm not going to, like, you know, cut out every biscuit, but I'm going to make it every second day. So you know, a treat should be a treat. It shouldn't be when things become every day, that's a habit. And so kind of recognizing that. Yeah, so I think, you know, yearly, yes, if everything's looking fine, totally look at things every year. But, you know, if there's something that you can change, then making it a bit more regular than that.
Perfect. That's really good. Thanks for the question, Thomas. As I said, Tyler, do you want to jump in?
I was just going to piggyback on that a little bit. You mentioned the testosterone levels there, and I would say just in the last month, I've had a couple of my guy friends talk about having gone in for tests and their testosterone levels are lower than they think they should be, or their doctor thinks they should be. I read an article. It just seems like it's everywhere right now. Different services online where you can be members, and you know, you get your own testosterone in the mail, right? If you're not going through the doctor, that kind of thing. I mean, is it as widespread of an issue as it sounds like, or is it? I mean, what's been your experience, or what have you read, Becky, as far as like how serious one should take that, I guess?
Yeah, so there's certain conditions that we would probably want to check your testosterone. So if someone comes in with like erectile dysfunction, then that's
Hmm.
something we would check it for. It's not a blood test that we generally do a huge amount here in the UK. I know there's loads of kind of social media around andropause. So maybe jumping on the back of the kind of menopause phenomena that's going on at the minute, where we're really recognizing, you know, the struggle that women go through when their estrogen levels drop. But similarly, a low testosterone can make you feel really, really tired,
Hmm.
cause libido issues, you know, the hair, kind of less hair on your legs and things like that. So it's not huge, something that I know a huge amount about, but it's probably, like with a lot of things, there's you know, big space opening to investigating that a bit more. I guess you balance in that you don't want to be someone that doesn't need testosterone. You don't want to be giving them huge levels of testosterone, you know, and imbalancing your hormones.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up is if there's my guess is that there's plenty of people that probably don't necessarily need it but are taking it just because of the theoretical benefits, and maybe you can have too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
Certainly. So there are a number of in the blood test space, there's a bunch of online, like Function Health is an online one here, at least locally. I don't know if it's international or not, but where you go in once or twice a year, I think twice a year is probably theirs. You pay $500 a year, right? And you get this just obscene number of markers from your blood test, right? And you mentioned the ones that we just get naturally in our physical every year, right? The cholesterol, the fasting blood sugars. I mean, are the rest of them important? I mean, it sounds interesting, right? Like to find out all this data, but I just don't know what to do with that data. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. You can do all these tests, but a lot of people don't know what to do with the data, even, you know, the doctors. And I
Yeah.
think you testing something if you don't know clinically what it means and what you would do that if you found something wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's academic almost. A lot of the hormones that we test, you know, you could test you know, your testosterone at one point in the day, at another point in the day, and there'll be completely different levels
Mm,
day to the next, because
interesting.
we're not like a uniform. Our hormones do this throughout the day. You might have one day where they're more than others. It's the same as women. You check the progesterone one day, it'll be completely different from a day later on in their cycle. So you have to be careful not to take that one test that you've taken at that one tiny point in time when our hormonal axis and like hypothalamic axis changes throughout the day. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's a slippery slope. You can
Yeah.
test everything, but like, when do you put a stop on it? And
Right.
also,
Right.
we're not just the numbers that our blood results show. Like, you have to listen to what someone's telling you and how they feel to kind of target, right, well, let's look at this and see if there is a reason and correlate it with the person, not just treat a number.
That makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tyler. Danny.
Yes, it's off of what Tyler was saying with the testosterone thing there. So I questioned this myself a few years ago, before it seemed as big as, because I think it's the same here, in terms of the amount of publicity there is around it. And I know younger people that are taking it that are in their 20s still, and they've said they've got low testosterone. But I noticed when I sort of changed my diet and lost weight and exercised more, my libido went up. I never had any real issues with sort of erectile dysfunction, but libido and stamina and ability to stay awake in the day and all that sort of stuff significantly changed. I noticed it more so with driving. Do you think there's enough being done, Becky, or how do you think that this can be sort of got across to people? Because I think once you start, I don't know, but I think once you start, it's sort of almost your natural production starts to wean off a little bit, doesn't it? And that's ultimately going to cause a bit of a catastrophic effect later on.
So I think after your 30s and certainly into your 40s, your testosterone does decrease by about 1% a year. I think that's around the number. So, that's a natural physiological thing. Your muscle mass goes down, and that probably contributes to it as well. Your sarcopenia. So as we age, women and men, our muscle mass goes down unless you're really good at going to the gym and lifting weights. So yeah, I mean, I think and difficult in the NHS because again, there's waiting lists for everything. So referring in for certain things when there's a limited kind of pot is difficult. Yeah, I don't the kind of andropause and I think there's probably a lot more gonna come out around that over the next few years, and definitely something to watch. But again, you don't want to kind of sensationalize things and over medicalize something if it's not necessarily there. Like you say, if there's younger people that are on testosterone, that don't necessarily need it, it's difficult.
Thank you.
Right. I was going to ask you something completely kind of off from that track of kind of parent health, but actually kids. What are the things that you guys are doing? And obviously you are a very active family. And you were talking about your diet, but what are the things that you've got a household with two doctors now in the home. I'm sure you guys have probably talked about, like, these are the things that we're going to ensure that are part of our family life to give our kids the best start to their lives. What are those things? What are you guys focusing on?
So we, as much we can, we try and focus on eating together and having like healthy relationships with food. And so, making sure they're having their vegetables, and if that means like shaving it into their bolognese or whatever, just, almost trickery. But yeah, sitting in and having dinner together, because it kind of ticks a few of those pillars of lifestyle, doesn't it? You've got the social connection, and I'm hearing about their day and they're hearing about my day within reason. Obviously, I can't share everything that I see and do, but and so having a nice chat around it while they're eating something healthy. So that, I mean, all I do as a parent when I'm not working is take them to various sports or skiing with you guys, but yeah, just I think we have a huge role in role modeling, don't we, as parents? So if they can see that mummy's going for a run, and that's important to me, it's really a non-negotiable. And it's I've tried to move away from seeing it as selfish and be like, well, actually, I know I can turn up and be present if I've had my 45 minutes or whatever of exercise that day. I'm much better for them, and they know that too. So they're really good at making sure that either they do it with me or they allow me the time for it, and then everything else follows.
Oh, that's great.
Role modeling is, a huge thing.
Yeah, and I love your emphasis on those family meals together. Again, that's something that, again, I'm not part of it, but I would have thought in traditional medicine, that's the social connection is nothing I've ever heard a GP telling me about. But you know, when you're living it, you know how important that is. So it's good to hear that. Kind of closing question then. If you know we're just at the cusp of a new year, and if somebody is thinking, look, I'm going to make this stick. What is January? What should January look like? What are the things you would say? Focus on these to give yourself the best start to the new year. But importantly, though, focusing on a consistent and sustainable path. What would you say rather than just jump in and go for the crash diet on the 1st of January? What would you advise them to do?
Obviously, it depends what the objective is. Again, there's studies, if it's, for example, if weight loss, there's plenty of studies out there that kind of show that it's really difficult to sustain weight loss if you're doing everything right. So if you're like doing the calorie deficit and going out for your 10K run every day and all that kind of thing. So focusing on the one thing, and then everything else can kind of follow later on. But like January is just a month. It's the same as February or October. Like it doesn't have to be on the 1st of January. And just making small sustainable changes because they're more likely to stick. If it's like, if it's you get the bus to work every day, but instead of getting the bus the whole way, you're going to get off 2 stops early. That's enough. If for some people, it just has to be that little change, and then other things follow. And taking the free fizz when you can. So if it's those 2 bus stops, or if it's like walking the kids to school instead of driving them, just little sustainable changes.